What if I told you that the secret behind some of your favorite brands, Boat, Levi's, Polar, MTR, or even ITC, lies with one company that's revolutionizing the e-commerce game? From being a bootstrapped startup, Marmeto has empowered over 2,000 brands to scale smarter and faster. So if you're looking for insights on scaling, strategy, and standing out in a crowded market, then this is one conversation that you don't want to miss. I'm Avni Raja, and you're watching Startup to Scaleup. Let me welcome on the show Shashwat Swaroop, the founder of Marmeto. Shashwat, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show. Let me first off ask you to tell us a little bit about your own journey. You started off with a book lending portal before diving into e-commerce. What was that moment that made you pivot to building Marmeto?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's definitely a pleasure for me. And it's going to be a great opportunity for me to probably put down our story and inspire other bootstrap folks around the country to build bigger businesses out of India, right? Like what we are trying to achieve here. And before I talk about the story, let me give you a quick background about myself, right? So I was born in Bihar and brought up in Delhi. My family stays in Delhi, and then I moved to Bangalore for my higher studies in 2012. For my engineering, just like everybody else in the country, right? So we all discover our, probably future and interests while doing the engineering, right? So this is what happened to me as well. I started my first company in the second year of engineering, and I was so much into it, I decided to drop out in the final year. So, back in 2015-16 is when I started building and scaling up my first venture. But unfortunately, it was too early for e-commerce in India, and we couldn't scale it up. So we had to shut it down after running it for 1.5, 2 years. But we got good scale even at that time, right? So that taught me the basics of entrepreneurship in terms of building a team, the P&L, basics of business, etc. Right? So those kind of things, and that helped me a lot while building Marmeto. So while after shutting down my first venture, I started consulting a couple of e-commerce ventures in the space. And that gave me an exposure of building a different scale of business altogether, right? In those 1 year of me shutting down the business versus starting Marmeto, I think I consulted so many companies that I really get to understand the actual gap in the commerce enablement space, right? And that was on the service side where this commerce as a sector was very new. People were no more looking to go deeper into tech, but was more looking to for technology which can adapt to the ever-changing consumer behaviors, etc. And this is where I realized that the current service companies are not really apt for doing it. So we found a gap in the service sector. We decided to start Marmeto there. And 2017 is when we went full-fledged with Marmeto into the commerce space. Yeah. So that was the beginning of Marmeto.
Shashwat, before going ahead to understand a little bit more about Marmeto, let me ask you, because I'm sure this is a question on a lot of people's mind. What was that moment when you decided that you wanted to quit engineering? Did it evolve over a period of time, or was it sort of a split-second decision?
Right. For me, it was an easy one because I was very clear that I don't want to have regrets in my life as a person, right? So I wanted to build something of large scale, and engineering was not really my cup of tea. Second, not from a academics perspective, I was very good at academics. This is why my college also allowed me to appear in the exams, etc., and pursue entrepreneurship in the background. So I was good at academics, but I was not really feeling. I was really missing the feeling of earning something for myself. So in the final year, final semester, I decided to cut down my options because if, let's say, I would have been an engineer, I probably would have switched to a job or something which would have given or helped me survive than continuing my or be resilient in building something in the entrepreneurship world. So this is why I decided to cut off my options and focus on building something. I don't really recommend people following this path unless they are not very clear about what do they want to achieve ultimately, right?
So did you face resistance from people around you, family, friends, etc.?
Not friends, but family for sure. None of the families will definitely agree, and especially when you come from middle class background, people always look at safety nets, right? So they do not want you to. They started feeling that I'm running after money at one point, but they were very cooperative, but at the same time, they were not ready for me to, go after something which is not clear yet, right? So but what I did at that time was I stopped communicating my future plans with them, and I said that I need to take a plunge, and until unless it does not become successful, I will not go back and tell them what is happening. So they until probably a couple of years after my engineering, they knew that I had completed the degree, and then did what I wanted to do.
So, if you could, in a nutshell, explain to us what Marmeto does, perhaps you could tell us with the help of an example of one of the brands that you've worked with.
Yeah, sure. So, in a nutshell, I'll say anything across commerce tech is where Marmeto will come in. We leverage platforms and technology across the commerce ecosystem. Like for an example, if you want to get started with the commerce business, we leverage platforms like Shopify, BigCommerce, Salesforce, Oracle, etc., and then help you launch your e-commerce business. Around that, as you start scaling it up, we help you connect all the tech stacks to deliver a large scale commerce experience to your customers. So we are primarily built or structured in a way to help the larger organizations in the space, like for the likes of Boat, Levi's, Borosil, etc. For that kind of brands who are who are serious about the commerce business and trying to scale it up pretty fast and want somebody from the tech side to play a role in it.
Okay. So when a brand approaches you to overhaul their e-commerce game or even sort of in the beginning stages, what's that one crucial factor that you look out for in that brand that helps you decide whether you should work with them?
I think for us, it's very important that the brand or the company should have a culture and understanding of tech, right? Because our primary role as a tech partner only gets you some impact or outcome when you also understand the impact of tech that can happen, right? So brands who are really serious about leveraging tech to build the right commerce stack is the right fit for us.
Okay. So you've worked with a lot of new age brands, whether it's Rare Rabbit, Chumbak, Sugar Cosmetics, Boat, and you've also worked with some legacy brands like MTR, Mapro, Borosil, even ITC. What's the biggest difference that you find when you're working with these new age brands versus the legacy brands?
The primary difference between different the primary difference between these kind of brands will be the legacy brands are very structured, process oriented. It's not about growth at all costs. It's definitely about growth, but it's definitely a sustainable growth. While on the D2C side, especially or the new age brands, we see that the primary focus, will be the growth in terms of, more orders, more customers, etc. Which is not the case in case of legacy brands. Yeah. Also because of the time
Right,
or
right.
the spent, the time they have spent in the ecosystem so far. So also because of that. But as in the last 7 years of our existence, we have seen more and more D2C brands getting matured, building process-oriented businesses than just random blind growth. So I do see that there is a transition already happening even in the D2C space as they, grow towards maturity.
Right. So these legacy brands, obviously, they have to sort of adapt to the changing environment, the e-commerce game that has completely changed at this point in time. What's that process been like? Because for such brands, they've seen a huge shift from when they would have started to what they have to do now to reach consumers.
Right. I think one of the important role that commerce enablers like us also play in for them to choose the right things is it's our job to make sure that they choose the right technology to help them enable and cope up with the changing consumer behaviors and adapt the new technology based on the innovations in the ecosystem. Right. So we definitely have to work harder there. But I do see that even in the legacy brands, it's a continuous fight to cope up and adapt to the new ecosystem or the D2C growth. I'll say pressure which is coming on. So I do see a balance of both of them. So D2C tries to probably cope up with legacy brands on distributions or the power of capital, etc. While on the other side, they try to keep up with the pace of innovation that D2C brands are coming up with. Yeah. It's mix and match, and for us,
Right.
we become a bridge for them to mix and match both.
Right, absolutely. So, Shashwat, can I put you on the spot and ask you which has been your favorite brand to work with and why?
Oh, there are so many favorites. I won't be able to name one because the moment we have a
Okay, a few of
so I'll definitely say like Boat is definitely one of them. Caffeine is
yeah.
second, which we really admire in terms of the beauty space and the growth that they have achieved, right? I love the founders as well. On the other side, I think from a legacy brand perspective, I'll say no, Levi's, Borosil have been a big fan of what like Borosil has been into our lives at least from my childhood. So of course, affinity for them. So yeah, but probably the way we work at Marmeto is any brand which comes into our wish list, we are, I mean, we give everything to make sure that they are a part of Marmeto ecosystem tomorrow. Yeah. So everyone is favorite for us.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about Return Prime. That sounds like it's a game changer. And the description, when I was going through what it's all about, it says on a mission to convert e commerce returns to revenue. Can you tell us more about this?
Definitely, I think Return Prime was one of the products that we built while we were redefining the commerce landscape in terms of what are the right set of softwares which should be brought in to solve the ongoing or future problems. And Return Prime has a very different take on the problem of returns in the e-commerce, right? So if you look at the e-commerce landscape in general, right, returns are inevitable in nature, right? There is no point of optimizing returns for another 2 or 3% efficiency. So we said that instead of optimizing for returns, why don't we look at the problem in a different way? We started looking at returns as an opportunity for the brands to convert and make more revenue out of it, right? So I think so far Return Prime has processed, and just to give you a sense of the scale of Return Prime, like we are present in 100 plus countries. This year we sold, Return Prime and it got acquired by GoQuick in March this year. But until I think then we were able to process over 4 million requests. Around 1,000 crore worth of refunds were done via Return Prime across 100 plus countries. So we were the number one in the Shopify ecosystem for which it was built. So some amazing feats across Return Prime, and all of them was done by a team of just 5 people from India. So and
Okay.
that's what we are really proud of building softwares of global scale with very lean teams right from India. So yeah, and it was also a challenge
Right.
internally for us to prove the world that innovations are also happening in India. It's not, we are not just executioners anymore.
So, where do you see Return Prime going in terms of how do you see that entire part scaling up?
So I think Return Prime with post the Coquick acquisition, I think we are doubling down on our growth. We are looking at increasing our market share in different geographies as well. Right, India, we were already dominant. Like all the major players were using Return Prime to process their returns, refunds, customer experience, etc. But now we are going to increase and double down in geographies like Europe, US, right, and Middle East in next couple of years. So yes, international expansion will be on focus while we will continue to have the Indian market share with us.
Right. All right, let's look at a slightly macro perspective as far as e commerce is concerned, because obviously there's a lot of evolution and it's happening really fast. You have AI also coming in, personalization, and like you've been
Yeah.
talking about D2C. So, where do you see the biggest opportunities and even risks for the brands in this day and age?
Right. I think there are massive opportunities in the e-commerce ecosystem today for both builders and creators. If you look at, so let's look at the numbers rationally, right? So e-commerce in India is below 10%, right? Even global numbers are around 10% of the overall retail volumes, right? Which means that a major penetration is yet to happen, right? Even in Indian landscape, if you see, and because we also have global exposures of different softwares, etc., in the e-commerce ecosystem, we keep a tap on how the Western markets are evolving or European markets are evolving, right? So if you look at the Indian landscape in general, like tier three, tier four cities penetrations are yet to happen fully, right? With just tier one and tier one contributing the majority of it, right? I think that a lot has to happen on one piece where we are talking about an omni-channel experience for end customers. Like for an example, let's say Customers can be present today across any channel. It could be WhatsApp, it could be your offline store, it could be your online store, it could be any chatbots, etc. But the customer is least concerned about your technological limitations, to serve them the very same way, irrespective of channels, right? And this is where we see that enablers like us has to really work and solve the omni-channel experience for customers in some way, and which is a big blocker for brands today. Brands are investing a lot in this space, but the needle is yet to move. So we are working on solutions which can help bigger brands to achieve this omni-channel experience, in a frictionless manner. So yeah, that's one area which we see is yet to explore.
Right. So, just taking that point forward, if I were to ask you the one piece of tech or innovation that every e commerce brand should invest in today to future proof their growth.
So I'll say, before looking at any innovation, I think the basics are still not placed. When we work with the, new age brands or especially the entrants, right? People are missing on fundamentals, right? And when you miss on the fundamentals, it's, ultimately that tech stack for you becomes a tech debt, right? And that's where brands start facing scale up problems, right? They get into more of tech management than tech innovation, right? So I think working with right partners or maybe choosing the right fundamentals is very important. And for that, you really have to understand, where do you really want to go, right? And why do you want to crack that piece? So I think that is missing today. We are just the new age brands, especially, are just chasing growths without understanding the fundamentals. That needs to be stopped, even for the ecosystem to become stronger. And on the other side, I believe that the businesses have to adapt and make sure that they're present wherever the customers are today, right? Which is again solving the omni in some way, right? Because we as a customer are also becoming very demanding, right? Like with quick commerce adding, probably making us habitual of getting everything in 10 minutes, right? We are very much demanding now, so we are not ready to accept any limitations coming on from the brand. And tech is the last thing, probably, as a customer, I would like to understand, from a brand perspective. So, of course, that should definitely be on their cards.
Okay. So, if we were to have this conversation again in, say, 5 years, where do you see Marmeto? What's the vision and where do you see yourself in that journey?
Okay. I think for Mameto, I think we are not really looking at 5 years. Like we are looking at building this generational, right? So we are happy building it for next 100 years, or and building it the very bootstrap way, because we believe that e-commerce evolution or a transformation journey that we say, right? So it's the same era when, let's say, the bigger businesses like TCS, Infosys were built, where there was a digital transformation happening, and they capitalized on that opportunity. I think we are at the very right place. So but still, to answer, in the next 5 years, I believe that we would love to be a very important part or contributor of this omni experience piece, right, where retail, online, and other channels come together for a seamless experience to the customers. So we are trying our best to solve that for brands across India and the world.
Okay. Right. What can you tell us in terms of numbers? Of course, I know that you worked with over 2,000 brands, but in terms of, revenues, path to profitability, what can you tell us?
So we are very much profitable from day one. Again, being bootstrapped, that's the only way for us to survive. And at Mameto, we do not really chase growth at all costs. Having said that, it's definitely a balance of when do we want to chase growth and still maintain profitability, and when do we want to really chase profitability, right? But at present, I think we are in the tunes of over 5 million in ARR, about 6 million to touch, right? And we are looking to grow 50-60% year on year comfortably for next couple of years, before we start taking the path to growth very seriously. At present, I think we were measurably distributed or present in India, but from this year, third quarter onwards, we have started expanding our footprints to Middle East and other parts of the world. So what we have done in India, by becoming the Shopify's first plus partners and launching these enterprises, solve the complex piece of tech, we want to now replicate this across geographies, right? So yes, so whatever you see today is just we are just setting up the fundamentals correct. Once we are ready with it, I think we will pull the the levers of growth. Yeah.
Right. But when you expand to other parts of the world, what are the major challenges that you foresee?
I think one of the important pieces while scaling up for us is the supply side of it, right? So considering that the route that we are taking, and you can look at probably all the IT services, right? So if you look at let's say TCS, etc., everybody, including Zoho today, right? Even in the new age world, Zoho has solved supply like anything, right? So let's say tomorrow if Zoho has to compete with SAPs of the world, right, or a Salesforce, right? They are very, very correctly placed in terms of cost of manufacturing, right? Their softwares. And as AI, etc., becomes more and more, generic, the cost of softwares will drastically come down, right? And when that happens, cost of supply has to be in control. So, for us also, we are regularly optimizing cost of supply, and as we expand into different geographies, this cost of supply has to be localized as well. So and that is a major challenge for us. So while we have taken some steps, but we are yet to solve. And at the same time, of course, understanding geography is the next level of problem that we are solving. But more or less, the e-commerce landscape or behavior remains same throughout the ecosystem. So yes.
Right. So you mentioned that, of course, you've been a bootstrap startup, and growth was not something that you were chasing after, especially in the first phase of scaling up. How difficult was that decision to take, especially at a time when startups around you are chasing growth and trying to scale up as fast as possible, putting in a lot of money? So what made you
Yeah.
go against that tide?
I think, by nature, I believe that we are, people who would love to build something for the long term. So, we don't want to have hassles. We always believe that this is the only thing that we would love to do probably the rest of our life, right? So we are comfortable in that sense. And while we have been approached by a lot of, funds, even for our products, etc., to raise money, we have been approached by a lot of big IT, services agencies to get acquired, etc. But I think we are here for the long haul. So, and it's primarily goes back to our belief of building and building something which leaves an impact even after us. So something generational, long lasting, etc. So yes, we are comfortable with that.
And in that decision and during that phase, what was the biggest challenge, any kind of setbacks that you
Oh,
faced?
definitely every single day. Like being a bootstrap startup, you are low on funds, right? You are competing with giants outside. And we are also becoming, a very easy target for, companies who are coming from outside India, setting up a base in India for their excellence centers. So, being one of the top in the industry, we become an easy target for them, right? So, the poaching is quite common in our cases, right? So, there is a constant fight, but I think the direction in which we are moving, I think we are happy taking those fights on a day-to-day basis, but we are not ready to give up. So I think, yeah, lots of challenges across everything, especially when you are limited by funds resources. It's difficult, but the good part with this is we are not ready to give up, right? So we are constantly coping up with the evolving nature of ecosystem and the industry in general, right? So we are fine doing it. So let's hope.
Absolutely. All right, Shashwat, let's go into a quick rapid fire round. I'll ask you some quick questions and quick answers from you as well.
Sure.
Okay. Describe Marmeto in 3 words.
Reliable. Um, I'll say reliable, innovative, and people first.
Okay. What is your proudest moment as an entrepreneur?
Changing so many lives for people from tier three, tier four cities has been one of the core hiring fundamentals for us. So yeah,
One piece of advice that you'd give brands for customer engagement.
be human, not really driven by bots, etc. I think we are becoming too much dependent before the AI matures. So I think being human will be the very first thing.
Who's been your biggest influence in your journey?
I'll say I've never met them, but Sridhar Vembu and Ratan Tata has been an inspiration from day one. Yeah.
All right. Any myth or misconception about e-commerce that you'd like to clarify?
Yeah, I'll say people who think everything can be automated and if, I mean DIY is actually DIY does not really understand tech at scale. So yes, that's a big misconception that people have to understand when they are trying to build large scale businesses.
Okay. Customer retention or customer acquisition, what would be your priority?
I'll say retention, but if I have to prioritize, I'll keep both P0. in today's world.
Okay. And if you had to give one piece of advice for an entrepreneur who is starting out today, perhaps looking at a bootstrapped kind of a startup, what would that be?
Know the why of your existence very clearly. I think that is one force which will keep you in the journey. And without understanding the fundamentals, do not approach anything. You are bootstrapped anyway. So, yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
All right, Shashwat, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you so
and taking
much.
us through your journey with us. That's a wrap on this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. But before we let you go, here's our question for you. What's one step that you're taking today to move your business closer to scale? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to Business Hook so you don't miss our next episode packed with more strategies and stories to fuel your entrepreneurship journey. Thank you so much for watching.